Hello, everyone. Thank you for visiting my channel, Educational Norm. I work as an educational consultant, which means that I have the opportunity to interact and visit with many teachers across Ohio and beyond. Those interactions have driven me to tell their stories and their ideas on education. The goal of Educational Norm is to provide an informational network that focuses on positive aspects of education, the people preparing students for the future of our world. Join us each week for a new interview, and please subscribe and share the channel with others that you think may enjoy the program. Thank you and enjoy the show. Hello, everyone. Today I'm here with the current principal of Chardon High School in Chardon, Ohio, Adam Tomco. Prior to his current position, Adam was the principal at Chardon Middle School, where he served for 4 years. And then prior to that, he was the assistant principal at Chardon Middle School. And he also serves as the business affairs supervisor for the district, which I cannot wait to hear more about that. Adam, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Well, as always, I always ask people about their history and education. And, working at a small school, I love the fact that you have multiple titles right now because it just sort of exemplifies exactly what small schools have to do to function on a daily basis. But before we get into all your jobs, can you tell us a little bit about your journey to where you're at now?
Absolutely. I actually, my undergrad is nowhere near education. Uh, I graduated from Ohio University with a degree in sociology, criminology, having that initial sort of plan to be law enforcement, primarily FBI. While I was down there, I did an internship just randomly. I saw it like on a board or something, and it was at a boys' group home. And it was over the summer. So I'm like, who doesn't want to stay in Athens for a summer? And through this internship experience, it was phenomenal. I'd go out 3, 4 days a week, spend 6 to 8 hours a day hanging out with these boys who, through the court system, were sent to stay at this treatment slash rehabilitation slash DH center. And I just sat in on these like social skills groups and hung out with them, played hoops with them, ate lunch with them, and absolutely loved it. I came home after that summer, worked construction, which I've done all throughout my entire high school career. Absolutely love it. That was also one of my initial passions and potential career jobs. But randomly, one of my good friends, his aunt was the director out in Crossroads in Menor,
Hmm.
and attached to Crossroads, which is a mental health facility, attached to their counseling center is a what's called a PHP unit, partial hospitalization program. And they were randomly talking, I think, at like Thanksgiving dinner or something. And she was mentioning how hard it is to find uh, people to come work in this program because it's very intensive in terms of the kids. And he shared my internship experience, and she called me. I interviewed, and I started my career at Crossroads, commonly called like a child youth specialist. So essentially, I helped with behavior in the morning during the academics. And then in the afternoon, I ran like social skills groups, problem solving, anger management, independent living. Did that for 2 or 3 years, and then kind of came that point where it was either I become a counselor or a teacher. Like this is the entry level position. So then I decided to become a teacher and attended Cleveland State to work on my master's in education. And the nice thing is about being a part of Crossroads, because they had an educational component to it, I was actually able to teach a full year there before even having my license on a long-term sub-license. And then I worked with every school district in Lake County, so had lots of connections with all of their sped directors or supervisors, and was able to get them to sign off on my student teaching. So, fun fact, I never did my student teaching because I went from child youth specialist to classroom teacher and had them sign off. And once I officially got my license, Willoughby Eastlake asked me to come run their ED unit in the middle school, and jumped at the chance to do that. So left Crossroads, went to Willoughby Eastlake, Eastlake Middle School, 678 building. Worked there for 9 or 10 years. Absolutely loved it. Um, Made a huge transition though. They ended up closing the ED unit after about 3 years and transitioned me to a co-teach, and I was not too happy. Wanted my own class, wanted my own kids, but very thankful for that move, because that's where I really just grew. And myself and my co-teacher, we were together for about 4 or 5 years in 8th grade math. And we just, to this day, I will put our co-teach models, because we followed several, up against anyone, and just loved the co-teach model. One of my favorite things was at conferences, the like last 3 years, we'd be sitting next to each other in the gym, and just a random family would come up and would be like, "Mr. Tomco, please tell me about my kid." And, this isn't a kid who's on an IEP. It's just a kid in the class, but they viewed me as their teacher, just as they viewed the other teacher. And back then we only had access to grades of the kids that we were technically responsible for. So we would just switch the Chromebooks, and I would be having this conversation with this parent, not even being the gen ed teacher in the room, but knew enough about their kid, knew enough about the content, knew enough about how that kid was doing in the class. And the kids just had no idea why there were two teachers in there or who the two teachers were. And funny story, for the first time in my career, I have a teacher in Chardon High School who I had in class
Oh,
at
wow.
Eastlake Middle School. And she told me, she goes, it's really funny. I never really knew why there were two teachers in that classroom in 8th grade math until I got into education and learned about like the co-teaching and whatnot. And she's like, I remember you guys, and I had no idea about why you were in there or why Mrs. Kuhn was in there. So
We're going to have to go back and revisit that. That's awesome.
Yeah, transition to that co-teach model. Absolutely loved it. Firm believer in IS is taking an active role in the classroom as co-teachers in the co-teach model in general. And then first time I crossed paths with you, I worked on my admin license, received that, and then a position in Madison Elementary opened. It's a K-5 building, North Elementary, but the most attractive thing about that was my father-in-law had retired from Madison 35 years. My wife did a stint in Madison as their director of student services. And I had the opportunity to go work with, I will name drop her because she is a legend, Mrs. Sally Rogus, who was the principal at North Elementary and had over 50 years in education. And I felt that as I entered the administrative world, she would be a wonderful person to work for. So I left Eastlake Middle, having never been in an elementary school. And you'll see I'm not afraid to take risks throughout my career, which is interesting. But I left Eastlake Middle School, went to Madison North Elementary School, and worked as the assistant principal for 2 years in Madison. Absolutely wonderful place to work. You want to talk about a small district and being put in a leadership role where they trust you and you grow and you can take on different initiatives. You're part of the DLT, the BLT, and whatnot. We did lots of great things in Madison my 2 years there, but something about that age group, K through 5, it just wasn't for me. I found myself primarily with the 4th and the 5th graders. Mm-hmm. Kindergartners frightened me. Being a big guy and walking in that room and having 22, 23 kids, I'll put the fear in you. I knew it wasn't for me. And then I was fortunate enough that a Chardon Middle School position opened. Applied for it, and this is my 8th year in Chardon under the different roles that you mentioned in the introduction.
Well, I do have to say there's quite a few things I want to go back to, but there are several times I've driven by Chardon at end of school day, and I see you out on the road directing traffic. So I know that I knew you were still there. A couple times I beeped and waved, and I could tell you had no clue who I was, but it was all good. So I'm going to go back into your past here. How did your experience at Crossroads help you in your role as assistant principal at a middle school and now, at high school? Because the behaviors there are extreme at Crossroads. So what does that do to you walking into a normal public school setting?
Yeah, great question. One of the founding philosophies or principles at Crossroads was it completely old school, but such just a great approach to Cluster management, student management, parenting. I mean, I use it with my own kids. Is the whole idea of love and logic, and the whole thing is very, very simple. It's you allow and provide kids with choices and the consequences that are associated with those choices, and you allow them to make it, and then you hold them accountable for the choice that they made. And that's something that I still use daily to this day. I allow kids to make choices. I process and talk through them about their choices and the potential outcome to those choices, and go from there. And Crossroads was huge for that. You're talking about, unfortunately, the kids from every school district in Lake County who have been placed in an alternative placement, which is like the most severe change you can make in an IEP is pulling a kid from their gen ed setting and placing them in alternative placement. So we had a crew of kids back in that program, and we hardly ever directed them. We allowed them to make their choices. We were really good with accountability. We were really good with rewards and incentive programs, whether it's like individualized or class based. We had three different quote unquote classrooms back there, or age groups. We had like an elementary, a middle, and a high school. So the love and logic is something I've stuck in. The whole idea, and it's so basic, I know, but like just building a relationship with kids and like getting to know who they are. I was fortunate enough back in Crossroads. We maxed at 12 kids in a class.
Nice.
And there was a teacher, an aide, and my initial position as CYS, and then I became the teacher. So you talk about being able to form relationships with those kids and know what's going on in their life and have personal conversations with them, not just the generic in passing. That went a long way. And the best thing too I learned at Crossroads is those kids trust you and care when you can hold them accountable and issue a consequence, and then they're right back to normal interacting with you. They're not holding grudges. They're not holding it against you, but it's that processing piece and forming that relationship.
And that goes so far in any setting where if you can build that relationship, it takes time. But you and I both know that the majority of the issues at a public school are about maybe 8 to 10% of your kids that are causing the issues. So if you get to know them, then hopefully that will reduce the number of incidents and
Yeah.
also the relationships you have with not only them, but their parents.
Yeah. They have to feel connected to somebody. Like if they don't have that connection, but I don't want to say they're not going to care, but I don't think that they're going to look to want to make somebody happy or celebrate something with somebody. They're just going to continue to do whatever they want to do, unfortunately.
That's right. So I'm interested in your co-teaching model. I was not aware of that in your background. So one of the I won't say one, many of the schools that I work with that have co-teaching, they often ask me to come in and discuss with them what a good model looks like. So could you share what you did at East Lake Middle School to make it work for you?
Yeah, again, I was very fortunate because we're talking about a 5-year process, right? Like I'm not saying I walked into that classroom and we like hit it right off the bat. I was very fortunate through our admin and our admin allowing us to build that, that I stayed with the same teacher for 5 years, and we had a minimum of 2 classes, but then I also had what was like my support period that was open to anyone in that class that could come in. So it was a great setup, first and foremost, with the schedule. Now, I will on the same side, we did not have common plan. We had lunch together. That was it. But the first and foremost, it's terrifying walking into an 8th grade math class when you've never taught it. And I will say it does. You have to get comfortable with the content and the standards, and so that first year, I would walk around and manage behaviors. I would help anyone and everyone individually. I would get my minutes met through the IEPs if we had gen ed minutes. I would always offer to take the homework review the very next day so that I'm in front of the board. I kind of like learned the lesson the day before. And then first 5 minutes as the gen ed teacher was walking around checking homework, I would be at the board, um, taking questions on homework and like modeling those problems. Then she would do like the instruction, and then we would do activities, and we walked around. And I give her a lot of credit because she adjusted a lot of her planning, because she had the right mindset. She's like, well, there's two teachers in this room. I'm going to use two teachers for the entire time. And that's how she sort of structured her planning, which was phenomenal. But once I learned after that first year and like learning the content and her teaching style and all this stuff, um, you name it, we did the team teach. We would do the divide and conquer, where I'd take half the class and teach it either at a lower or an upper level, and she would keep the other half of the class. And like I said, the story in the intro, we got so good that no one could tell who was the general education math teacher and who was the IS. We never locked into one specific type of model. We kind of dabbled in all of them and went from there.
I think that if you're looking at your kids, you're going to have to not use one model because the
No.
needs of the kids are going to be different. I
Yeah.
do give credit to the math teacher because not every teacher is that willing and open to give up control of any kind. So to have a teacher that's planning for two teachers is amazing. What was her name again? Let's give her a shout out. I mean, that's awesome.
We should give her a shout out. It's Miss Jessica Kuhn. It's my understanding she left Eastlake Middle School shortly after I left, and then she went over to the School of Innovation in Willoughby Eastlake. And I don't know if she's still there or not, but she absolutely wonderful, wonderful gen ed teacher. And like, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, it was just so interesting, like our journey. Like, I was a big data guy, and showed like her how to collect, analyze, and look at data. And she was like a planning and instructional genius, and learned a ton about different ways to teach things, the importance of covering standards, knowing the standards, and things like that. I mean, I had been self-contained my entire career. I'd never worked with another teacher, and I didn't even student teach, so I didn't have like a teaching mentor. I went from basically being like a classroom behavioral guy to teaching to a self-contained ED classroom, we called them then, at Willoughby Eastlake, and then put in a gen ed setting, and just learned a ton from her about standards, pacing, we have to really, really, really make sure we cover this. She really knew, like, what was it called back then? The OAA. She really planned and prepped and cared about her OAA scores, which I cared about as well. And so she was a great, great teacher for me.
Even though you cared about the OAA scores, you mentioned the relationship piece, and I think that the story of the student coming up and you didn't even have them on your caseload, that's a great indicator of how much the relationship was built to all students.
Yeah.
Perfect. So
Yeah.
I want to say, I think, because I visited the STEM school there in Willoughby Eastlake about 5 years ago. I think she was there at the time. I think I saw her out in the common area with her math kids doing a STEM project. So I think she was there 5 years ago. I can't say anything now. That's awesome. So you get into Chardon and you're the assistant principal in Chardon, and obviously you've grown into the principal there at the middle school and now at the high school. What are some of the biggest differences between your middle school experiences and your high school experiences?
Oh. So I'm 18 weeks into my my high school gig. It's night and day. It's a whole new world of high school versus middle school. I mean, it just is. Middle school is a lot more structured. Not as many course offerings, not as many content level teachers. I mean, let's just start with the schedule, for example. the high school currently has a very, very complex schedule, a hybrid block traditional schedule. So it's, 3 days a week. We're on a quote unquote white schedule, which is our traditional, you see every teacher. And then we alternate on a Wednesday, Thursday between a block day. We're going to only see half your teachers, but it's a 90-minute block instructional period. So we have two different sort of instructional frameworks that we're dealing with. Whether it's an assessment day, a lab day, or just a general instruction day, but like just planning for events. Like you never plan an event for a block day because kids miss, quote unquote, a day and a half of instruction versus just a 44-minute period.
Right.
Middle school, we have one schedule. We ride and die with it. And we don't have to change anything. But like snow days and calamity days, if a snow day or calamity day falls on a block day, then you have to adjust your schedule so that they get that block day in. The course offerings, I mean, Chardon is our high school course of study is tremendous. We offer a wide array of courses. We're both CCP and AP, so kids can go both avenues with plenty of offerings in each of them. We offer honors all the way up through chemistry and the high levels of math. We have such flexibility with the teachers up here too of, CCP business classes, which we're one of the few that can offer that because we have a teacher who has their MBA and very fortunate to have them. One of our science teachers, she's CCP, AP, she can teach everything and offer some really great high level elective or core science classes. But this schedule, I mean, the middle school course of study, it's like 12 pages. The high school course of study, right. It's like 40 something pages. I haven't even gotten into creating the schedule for next year. The whole block model has come under question, and we're analyzing everything to see if we want to maintain a block or go back to a traditional schedule with the flexibility to improve some lab times for our higher level science classes so that they can do those lengthy labs.
So let me jump in real quick. So what percentage of kids also go out to the vocational tech center?
Yeah, that's a great one. The percentage, I don't know. I think we're right around 60 something kids between our juniors and seniors who go to Auburn, whether it's the AM or the PM. So a decent amount.
Yeah, that's a significant for your student population.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's that. It's the behavior, bigger kids, bigger problems, I don't think really applies. I actually think I had more office visits down at the middle school in terms of behavior because kids would want to come talk to things. I really only see kids in the office at high school when they have done something wrong. But shout out to Chardon High School students. You guys are absolutely phenomenal. We had a significant decrease in behavior from first quarter to second quarter. They have responded well to several changes, some of which I made, some of which I did not make, but unfortunately had to enforce coming in here. But their response to them has been truly remarkable. We have had a significant decrease in behavioral referrals and behavioral incidents from the first quarter.
That's great.
Yeah. Staff, there's a little bit of difference in middle school and high school staff. I am by no means a content expert. I don't claim to be a content expert. I'm pretty good at instruction and coaching instruction. So that's what I'll hang my hat on. But it's just a different approach to having conversations with teachers. We have very low OTES numbers this year just based on the cycles. So I've had a few OTES conferences. Those are very similar to middle school. Arrival dismissal, instead of 600 kids getting off the bus, you only have about 200 because the other 400 drive, which is very interesting. But there's just, little things like that. The number of events, I've worked more 12-hour days these first 18 weeks than I have ever in my professional career, just with coverage. The football games were a lot of fun. Homecoming weekend was crazy between Thursday, Friday, Saturday. The game, the dance, the parades, the assemblies. It was a really cool experience. Um, that's it. Days are longer, works the same.
Kids are
Kids are
kids.
phenomenal. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and going back to the idea that, that it's a different staff. I've been part of both high school and middle school, and middle school staff is just different because of the kids. You can't use the same strategies high school to middle school and vice versa. Even though a lot of times we try, that's what the junior high method used to be. But it really is, if you know anything about development, the teachers have to be different to some extent because
Yeah.
of what is needed. So it's not different. It's pretty much the same wherever I go, but it sounds to me like things are going in the right direction, especially with kids, high school kids. If they're responding to programming, then that's great. Um,
Yeah.
I will say for people that might be watching outside of Ohio, OTES is the evaluation process that we use here. I, I just want to make sure we clarify because not everybody knows that. And I do like the changes they made in OTES by doing the data piece a little differently and making that understanding your data and how you're going to use it. Because that to me was something that was not fair for the language arts and math teachers when 50% of their evaluation was their testing scores. Nobody wanted to teach it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we all learn from that as well. So with your new role, you have this title, Business Affairs Supervisor.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. And I mentioned this before that in small schools, you are asked to do a lot of different roles just out of necessity. But I feel that they're all great learning experiences if that's how you go into the process. So tell us about your business affairs supervisor role.
Yeah. I think I was the assistant principal at the middle school for 3 years, maybe four, 3 or 4. Got to give a shout out to my guy Tim Vallata too, principal. We both came into the middle school together. Phenomenal administrator. Learned a ton from him. Very organized communicator, consistent. Um, and so I was going into my 4th or 5th year as a assistant principal at Charter Middle School, and we had built something nice there. Collectively going in there, and I don't even know. Just some random day, Dr. Hanlon, my superintendent, calls me, and my end game in education has always been to sort of land somewhere on that business affairs side to begin with. We have an assistant superintendent of business affairs, Mr. Steve Kofel's his name. Excuse me. And I love his job. He manages our district PI, handles all of our school improvement projects, oversees all of our classified staff. And as I mentioned earlier, I have a big background all through high school and even after I graduated college in construction. So I always have an interest in that. But my superintendent calls me and he's like, "Hey, you're interested in being in business affairs, right?" I'm like, "Absolutely." He goes, "Well, we have an open position within the department if you're interested." I'm like, "Sure, what is it?" So he goes, "Well, you might be able to help Steve with some side projects and get some experience within that realm, but your primary role is going to be to go run transportation." And I'm like Chardon Transportation, like that whole department. He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "All right, let me think on it." So I thought about it, and I, despite the advice of several people that I trust and seek advice from, I went against the wishes, and I'm like, I'll take it. Like I'm ready for a challenge. I have my own department. I've only been an assistant principal in Chardon so far, and now this would be like my opportunity to go run a department. So I started July 1st and walked into that department having zero experience of transportation, like none. So, I spent the entire month of July learning about routes and T reports and driver qualifications and licensing and uh, creating and managing routes and pickup times and it managing a massive transportation budget, which I've never done before, between fuel costs, repairs, mechanics, parts, tools, driver pay, overtime, scheduling of overtime. It was quite a month of July and August, and then the school year hit, and that's when things really got interesting. I'm sure most of you are aware that transportation never starts off the year flawless. And we were no different. And having somebody new in the department probably didn't help things. And the first month of being and again, I never formally wore the title of director of transportation. I went supervisor of business affairs, but I do refer to it, running transportation or being the director of transportation. It was hard. My 12-hour days here are like nothing compared to the 14 or 15 I was putting in that first month and a half of transportation, coming in on Saturdays. And I was really trying to pride myself on like customer service and like owning that we don't have clean routes right now. We're missing some pickups. Yes, our routes are long. We're understaffed, but I really want to make sure that the parents, community members of Chardon, that they heard us and that I would call them back or respond to their emails. And that took a lot of time, but it was important. I mean, no one wants their first, second, third, fourth grader sitting outside half hour, 40 minutes because the bus is running late and not knowing if they're on the bus or not on the bus. And then my big push with that department was being a tech guy, was seeing how that was important. I wanted to clean it up and did a bunch of research on all the different apps and programs that are out there for communication. We ended up purchasing one, which was great. It allowed parents to track their bus. We could communicate to routes only, which was huge because I got tired of sending out district-wide communications about transportation changes. So we could communicate directly to the buses. The kids could get the app on their own phone. It would give them like a little alert when they passed an identified geofence telling them that they were 2 minutes from their house. So, winters in Chardon, the last thing you want in December, January, February is somebody standing outside in 15-degree weather with snow coming down and waiting half hour, 40 minutes for the bus. But hiring and managing staff, never really did that on my own because I did that in the middle school. But it was quite an experience. Logistics is something that I think I'm really good at, planning for things, implementing it, making sure that we have everything covered and accounted for prior to rolling it out. But my ability to logistically approach a problem just went to a new level.
Well, I'll have to say, just hearing that, I think you fit into a lot of the people that I've been interviewing, that if you're given a job, if you don't know what you need to do, you learn. You spend the time and you become responsible for your own growth. And rather than just letting it happen or saying, I didn't get enough training, well, you're responsible, go do your thing, what I have to do the job. So that drive is something that I feel that in the people that I've interviewed is very prevalent, and it's something that I can see in you as well.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, again, so self-educate yourself, like get out there and go do it. Like I subscribed to every transportation newsletter and like read the current ones and the previous ones. I did not hesitate. I formed a few good relationships with neighboring directors of transportation, and very thankful that they're like, here's my cell phone. You call me if you need anything. And I picked their brain nonstop. Like, hey, what kind of vans do you drive? Like, we have to purchase 2 new ones, and, seeking their input. And hey, what's the best strategies for trying to promote and hire new drivers? And like, good luck. If you find that, you let us know. But I mean, the challenges and I guess my disclaimer for all is please go easy on your transportation department in every school district. They literally, the drivers are phenomenal. They will drive until they can't drive anymore. Chardon also is a unique challenge because, we're 88 square miles of coverage, and we might have 15 kids on a bus, and one of those kids is on that bus for an hour just because of where they're located and where we have to transport them. But it's not the drivers, it's not the people in the office. It just for a while there, it was very difficult to find drivers. And the process to become a driver is not easy. It's quite a bit of training. Driving the school bus is not easy in terms of the driving skills it requires. The test to actually become a bus driver is very, very difficult. You actually have to drive to Youngstown to take it, which is crazy. No local testing, but it's a challenge. And we're, I can say we hired our formal director, who is a rock star in the industry, Josh Now. But I feel comfortable saying that I left it better than I found it. Did some very difficult changes with tiering of the systems to reduce routes and maximize our drivers, and it was quite a year.
You sound like a transportation director. Awesome.
I'm very well versed in the field. I can tell you that. I don't know how many building principals can say they ran transportation for a year.
Yeah, that's also good when a bus is running late, you don't freak out because you know the process behind it. Said they'll get here, just
Yeah.
get the thing's going. Yeah.
I still carry my building bus radio, and I get on and chatter with all the drivers, and I know what to ask and how to ask, and it's good stuff.
So let's get into your current job a little bit. Going into a new position in a new high school, or actually going into the high school, I'm sure that there are some personal beliefs that you want to see come into the building itself to build your culture and those types of things. So, what kinds of things are you doing right now and plan on in the future that's going to help build the culture that you really want to grow in the future?
Yeah, great question. I am a huge data guy. At the middle school, they used to call me the data dork because, like, when I come in to your classroom or have conversations, it's going to be centered around data and numbers. So I always want to see data, and part of the process that Tim and I built at the middle school, which I'd never been a part of, was that PLC culture. So I am a massive PLC guy. I was fortunate enough in Madison. We went through that school improvement process and implemented TBTs within the building. So it was really neat to see that. So I'm just going to give it the umbrella of teacher collaboration, but building that like formal, focused, mandated time for teachers to sit down and talk is like invaluable. So this past year, when they made the schedule going into this year, for the first time, the high school had PLC time built into their workday, which is phenomenal. So previously they had a late start Wednesday sort of model, and then they would take that Wednesday time to PLC. But having it every day is great and invaluable. The tricky piece is, teachers teach, like, again, you talked about one of the differences between the middle school and the high school. Our sixth grade teachers all taught the same content under a teaming model. So our sixth grade science teachers could PLC 5 days a week and align their instruction, align their assessments, review their data, things like that. At the high school, our science teachers are teaching eighth grade science, biology, chemistry, honors chemistry, AP this, physics, and it was very challenging to like adjust my mindset around their PLCs because and thankfully the department chairs got very creative and created a wonderful like PLC A and B schedule and aligned it to a different day. And then they built in department meetings as well into that PLC, which are also very important just of how we're trying to structure the district between the DLT and the BLT. But so the data and the PLC, the PLCs are going well. It's it is a process. The building has had PLC time forever, but I really want to bring the focus to short-term and long-term moving forward, is making sure that, our biology teachers, our chemistry teachers, our 8th grade science teachers, we are giving those common formative and summatives. We are circling to our PLCs. We're looking at our data. We're aligning those standards to those questions and reflecting on how students are performing within the standards. I think the state and the Ohio Centralized Reporting System is a thing of beauty for any assessed teacher, where you can essentially create your own assessment that's aligned to a standard. It grades it for you, and it tracks the classroom performance within that standard. At the middle school, we were starting a big push of using Edulastic for all of our assessments. So that building was, 2, 3, 4 years in of PLC. And again, a lot easier for them because 4th-grade math all taught 4th-grade math. So
Right.
when they're sitting down, they're all teaching the same content. But they consistently used Edulastic. They consistently gave the same formative and summative assessments. And then they were very comfortable sharing out their data, whether it's on a Promethean board or the whiteboard, whatever you want to call it, and then reflecting on it, and then keeping tabs on the standards of what they've been teaching and how the kids are performing. Ideally, within the PLC model, that's where I want to get to up here, where the summative in this biology class is the same as it is in this biology class. And then we're reviewing those summatives in our PLC, seeing how our kids performed, and then figuring out, all right, how do we stretch or push these kids or this standard, but we need to circle back to this because our kids aren't getting this, and this is very important. So that's a big thing. And then just more of a focus on the data and the importance of data. And right now we're having a big push based on our state report card. We're looking at our progress component. So we have been our DLT has been trained. We're actually taking a day in our BLT to do a value-added training. And then we're going to get into EVAS as a building and kind of do a root cause analysis using the 5 Why model to identify some target areas of what we need to address and improve in our building in terms of the progress. Chardon's a very high achieving district. Which is great. Always something to look for and get better at. And right now we need to attack our progress component.
Well, I think that you are the model of the art and science of teaching, because you've already mentioned how important the relationships are, which is that art of teaching, and the data is the science piece. How can I use this information to better drive what we do? So I love those examples. And again, I'm going to just clarify for those non-Ohio people, a TBT is a teacher-based team, and then you have your BLT, which is your building level team, and then you have a DLT, which is district level. And the way the model's set up, it's supposed to be a two-way communication from top to bottom, bottom to top, to make decisions that are best for our students and best for our curriculum. Did I do a good job of summarizing that?
You did wonderful. The DLT communicates with the BLT, and then the BLT in Chardon and in the high school and middle school, we've always used our department chairs as our BLT, which is our building leadership team. So we meet once a month for about an hour. We have a good little format of what we look at. And then from our BLT meetings, our department chairs, a big fan of shared leadership too. And I think that those department chairs really take on that leadership role of then taking back what's discussed at the BLT to their team during those department level meetings during our built-in PLC time, which is invaluable. It's tremendous just to not have to do it after school or before school, and to be able to have that meeting during the school day. Same thing with a TBT or PLC. Number one thing is if you're going to implement it, it's worth the loss of instructional time. I've seen it on both ends. You're taking 7 to 8 minutes off per period or something to allow teachers to meet during the day, collaborate. It's just building that culture of what an actual good PLC is, and not just giving them the time and saying, here you go, now you have all this time, go. Right. That's a challenge, but it's worth the investment of PD or coaching or any path that your district wants to do to help support it, to bring in Norm, right?
Well, eventually that'd be great. It's always a good thing for business. I'm marketing myself as well right now. Now to get your mind frame, I've worked with schools that have done the common assessments. The next step after common assessments, working on common outcomes rather than
Yeah,
assessments. And if
yeah.
you can agree to those, and it doesn't matter, it lends itself to more open type of teaching because it doesn't matter how you get there as long as you get there, which is perfect.
Correct. And it doesn't matter how you get there as long as you get there. It's so funny that you say that. A fourth grade teacher, she retired last year, um, 30, 32, 33 years. This teacher always had a achievement rate of over 92, 93% in fourth grade math, right? Co-teach model too. She had one section of gen ed, one section of co-teach with a co-teacher in there. One year she had 100% achievement rate, meaning every kid hit that magic 700 number in her class.
Wow.
And I'm like, you are amazing. Your numbers are through the roof. She goes, I do nothing special. And I said, that's not fair. Because the day one those kids walk in there, you set the expectation that you're going to learn this and I'm going to stay on you until you learn it. You constantly you model a different way. You know what every kid needs to be working on. And by the end of the year, every kid before they leave that classroom gives you a hug because they know you care about them. They know that you push them and you set that really, really high expectation and you hold them to it. Does every classroom look like that? No, but that's what worked for her. And it's tremendous. And again, I don't expect every classroom to look the same,
No.
but I do expect every assessment to look the same and then to reflect and to share out why you were more successful here than the other teacher was here, or to just get that reassurance. Well, we're both on the right track. Our kids are both succeeding. Let's keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah, I love that. I think that if we're looking at diversity, which is huge, diversity in how kids learn and understanding how kids learn, there's no canned program that works for all kids. So you have to be able to do your teaching the way that has to be for your kids.
Yep.
Well, you know what? We're almost out of time here, Adam. Time goes fast when you are telling great stories.
That was easy, Nora.
It is easy. I find that the conversations are fun, and I look down at the clock going, "Oh my gosh, it's been 55 minutes already. I need to start wrapping this thing up." So I appreciate your time. Is there anything that you have on the horizon that we should know about going on in Chardon?
No, I am approaching the scheduling season, so
Good.
we have we've sort of proposed a few schedules in to our BLT. I heard these post break, the faster we can get course offerings out and whatnot. We unfortunately will have a semi high turnover of staff, which has me a little nervous about what we're offering in our 47-page course of study. So I'm a little reluctant and hesitant. Not attending any conferences to present. No, we're just locking ourselves in these walls and trying to make Chardon High School a better place.
And hoping not to get the snow that you normally get there in the snow belt here in Chardon. It's we had a doozy not that long ago, which you didn't get nearly as much, but
No.
it was fun. My mom had 51 inches of snow out there, so it happens.
I went to the Cleveland Browns game yesterday with my children, my
Sorry about
18-year-old
that.
and 15-year-old. We had fun, but it was very odd being a lifelong Browns fan and attending multiple games every year that it was December 29th and I'm at a Browns game in a hooded sweatshirt and
Yeah.
a long sleeve shirt underneath. So this winter's been really off,
Yep.
30 inches of snow or 58-degree weather
Yeah.
in the end of December. It's been great.
Well, to give folks outside of the region the idea, when I attended the Houston Oilers game back in the late 70s, early 80s, in an old municipal stadium, people were building fires in the stadium to stay warm. So times have changed a little bit.
A little bit,
A
yeah.
little
Now
bit.
we
All
have
right.
hand warmers, right?
So, Adam, thank you for a great conversation today, and I wish you the best of luck in the next semester. Please remember, for all you watching, subscribe to the Educational Norm channel. And if you need information about what Adam's doing or anything that I'm doing, you can contact me at norm@normpotter.com or visit my website, structuredcreativityconsulting.com. And until next week, be kind, be professional, and find solutions. Thank you, Adam.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Norm.